Well, thank you, guests and ladies and gentlemen. Nakawakalevu, namaste and good morning to all of you. It gives me a great pleasure to be here this morning and to deliver the opening remarks for this very important workshop. I know that today's workshop brings a very diverse group of people, stakeholders, experts, designed to kick off much needed discussion on the key priorities for Fiji's water sector, and that too up to 2050. We know that hard infrastructure such as road, bridges, water require long-term planning and building. It is therefore appropriate that this workshop is talking about priorities for the water sector for more than the next 25 years if we start today. We know that the water sector plays a pivotal role in combating climate change, with enhanced water management benefiting a host of areas such as economic growth, health, energy, agriculture, food security, and people's livelihood in general. As a country, we recognize the right to clean and safe water and proper sanitation. While we've made recognizable progress by ensuring that approximately 98% of our urban population and 58% of our rural population has access to treated water supply, we are still tasked with the challenge of finding solutions that will close the gaps to not only reach unsafe Fijians, but to those that already have access to water, to ensure that it remains safe, it remains affordable, sustainable, and consistent at all times. Over the past 5 years, $1.12 billion Fijian has been allocated to Water Authority of Fiji, of which 421.7 million has been for operating expenditure and 705.1 million for capital expenditure. The majority of the funds has been going towards the construction of the Viria project, which is expected to be completed soon. In fact, in the 2022-2023 budget, of the $204.3 million, 89.2 million was for operating and 115 million was for capital expenditure, of which 60.3 million was for the Viria project. I know this project is designed to augment the vital urban infrastructure and services, which is again vital for supporting growth and sustainable development in the greater Suva Nosori area. And I hope that when it's completed in May 2023, that it will resolve and aid and support development within the Suva Nosori area. The project, I'm told, includes construction of a 40 megaliter per day water treatment plant in the first phase, and necessary provision is kept for increasing the capacity in future up to 80 MLD or megaliter per day based on the demand. Over the years, water and sanitation sector in Fiji has been facing major challenges of maintaining and upgrading the existing infrastructure. Non-revenue water and financing of new water infrastructure. People have been suffering from regular water cuts and disruptions. Approximately 47% of the treated water gets lost along the pipeline due to non-revenue water. The task for the new coalition government is to address these challenges, which is exacerbated by aging water and wastewater infrastructure, our growing rural to urban drift, and the impacts of climate change on our raw water resources. Moreover, the most pressing constraints on our ability to provide households with a consistent supply of water include a few things. First, the limited production capacity of existing water treatment plants. Ongoing disruptions to supply are a result of production levels far below the demand for the water. The increasing demand for water as a result of major commercial and residential developments is also placing an added strain on our aged infrastructure. This needs to be considered carefully. Some people say that we need to review the current water tariff. I don't know, maybe that's part of the discussion at this workshop. And strategies to ensure that the use of water or the conservation of water is also part of a major plan and activity within the area of water supply and the concerns within the Water Authority of Fiji. Changes, of course, to weather patterns and prolonged periods of drought is also increasing water usage and affecting water yields at catchments and water sources. The majority of the existing infrastructure was built at a time when resilience to climate change was probably not on the minds of our people. So it was built to withstand, it wasn't built to withstand the impacts of climate change. Last week, I visited the Northern Division, which is the second biggest island in the country, with a team from my staff, from my ministry. And what we saw was kind of unbelievable. The state of the infrastructure is in a bad shape, bad condition. Our hospitals, I'm talking about the physical infrastructure. Our hospitals, health centers, schools, public buildings, government quarters, roads and bridges, and water infrastructure are in a crumbling condition. You know, some people say that we, just 3 months into government, we shouldn't talk about the past government. That's a bit harsh on us. And I want to say that the previous government has not spent an adequate amount of money or funds over the years on maintenance of our infrastructure. And as a result, this government recognizes that we are in a catch-up mode. Public infrastructure assets, as you all know, are a foundation for any country's economic development and its success. Maintaining such assets in good condition is also critical. Neglected infrastructure and assets will result in degradation of the assets and will cause further negative effects on the economy, leading to greater cost of reconstruction over time, which is really the case for us right now. But on the positive side, let me assure you that the priority of the coalition government for the next few budgets, you know, we're not just going to talk about the next budget, but we will be talking about the next few budgets. And in those budgets, we will prioritize maintenance. We will put aside sufficient budget for the maintenance of our hospitals, health centers, schools, public buildings, government roads, bridges, and water infrastructure. Our ministry has already started to work on this, and necessary plans will be announced soon. I will also be meeting a lot of permanent secretaries, heads of departments, to discuss some of these issues for the 2023-2024 budget preparation. Over the next 3 to 5 years, the Water Authority of Fiji should focus on reducing non-revenue water through revamping, pressure management, and leak detection activities. The implementation of the automation strategy with a comprehensive and integrated approach is also a major plan for the government to improve water services. This will include process automation, which is one of the alternatives hailed to improve the current water issues. Comprehensive data integration, technological solutions is the first, in my view, stepping stone towards more proactive, automated water cycle management. The Water Authority of Fiji is also being advised, and I'm sure the CEO will take this in a very positive light, to streamline its activities and improve efficiency through increasing its operational efficiency and thereby reducing cost. Enhancement of asset management systems and processes, and finally exploring adaptation strategies towards building a climate-resilient water and wastewater utility. At the moment, we are told that around $25 million is spent on electricity cost and more than $25 million on staffing cost. This is more than 50% of the operating budget of the authority. In my view, this needs careful scrutiny, and efficiency needs to be put in place to reduce the cost and improving the services without it being affected. The government is determined to put in place necessary measures to address these long-standing water and wastewater challenges. Addressing existing and future challenges of Fiji's water sector will require a long-term plan and concerted effort by government, the private sector, development partners, and other government agencies to drive these efforts. We believe, on the positive note, that we will achieve long-term water security if we put all these things into place. Let me also add that the Water Sector 2050 strategy is the right way to think through some of these problems. I know we've had in the weekend the planned water maintenance, water infrastructure maintenance program, and I would say to Water Authority of Fiji to plan better, at least in terms of its communication strategy and making sure that water is supplied to the consumers when this repair or maintenance work is continuing. The Ministry of Finance is also finalizing a 10-year National Infrastructure Investment Plan. This is funded through a technical assistance from the Pacific Regional Infrastructure Fund. And the National Infrastructure Investment Plan has identified and consolidated a pipeline of infrastructure projects across all sectors in a single plan. And I believe planning in a very, very effective, efficient way can produce better outcomes and better value for money that we spend in building our infrastructure. Let me also take this opportunity to say that the Honorable Prime Minister, with the Ministry of Finance, will be hosting a National Economic Summit on the 20th and the 21st of April. And we know that as part of the discussions and the sessions, water sector will also be discussed and will feature prominently in those discussions. We have also appointed a fiscal review committee, and I can see the esteemed chairman of the fiscal review committee, prominent lawyer, Mr. Richard Naidu. Thank you for joining the workshop. The committee is currently, among other things, reviewing our existing tax and customs systems as a whole. I hope they're doing that. And looking at the ability of the government to generate revenue to ensure that we are able to meet the demands of our people without, of course, going into over-taxation, which is already a debate, and that's good. While we note that there is an urgent need to address the high public debt situation, which always has been a concern and should be the concern for all of us, and we are guided by those concerns, and therefore we will be looking at ways for fiscal consolidation. But this will be done in a balanced way, in a way that looks after the interest of all the sectors and ensures that we have sustained levels of economic growth in our country. So that is, my friends, a snapshot of some of the things that the new government is doing and thinking. And part of our philosophy as a government is to move towards a different style of governance. And that style to be based on consultation, dialogue, listening to experts, digesting different plans and ideas, and putting them into plans and priorities of government that puts those plans and objectives on a solid foundation and gives us a sustained way of resolving some of the issues. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for having this workshop, because I think this is a very critical workshop. I see some very good experts. I see a professor of water's future also speaking at that in this session. I never heard of a professor of water's futures before, so that's a very, very important participation in this workshop. Let me, in closing, acknowledge and thank the World Bank and the UNDP, who I understand are funding this workshop. And thank you all for the support and cooperation provided to the government and also to the Water Authority of Fiji. I wish you well for the next 2 days and look forward to the outcomes of the workshop. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Pula. If there was any need for further incentive to think about ideation, I think the Deputy Prime Minister's speech has already put that out there. We have to do more with less is the message, and we have to think about creative ways of doing more with less. And that is why we are having this ideation session, because status quo is no longer acceptable, and we have to think about how we become efficient and how we come up with more productive solutions, doing more with less. I'd like to start, first of all, by acknowledging the UNDP and World Bank for their support for this event, without which we wouldn't be able to be sitting in this room. I'm also incredibly thankful to the thematic speakers who have, for accepting my invitation, and in some cases my persistent pleading to attend and speak at this event. To jumpstart the ideation process, we have put on their shoulders the task of introducing the thematic areas, highlighting the challenges, and also sharing what's global best practice looks like, so we can come up with ideas to solve the water challenges for Fiji. And last but not least, on behalf of Water Authority, I also want to thank you, the ideators, all of you, for giving your time to come together for the first time and have a national discussion to come up with a vision for Fiji's water sector. And I suspect when many of you received the invitation, you were probably surprised. You were probably bemused that Water Authority is calling you to come and talk to us about water. And I can assure you it wasn't a mistake. The intention is to have as diverse views as possible, to have different perspectives on the challenge of water. Because what we're talking about is not water issues of today, we're talking about water issues, as Deputy Prime Minister said, for the next 25 years. And all of your views and all of your perspectives are really, really important. As the famous proverb goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. Water infrastructure planning is no different. The best time to have this conversation probably was 20 years ago. We didn't do that then, but we are here and we are having it now. And it is about intergenerational equity. It is about ensuring that the infrastructure we build, infrastructure we plan, infrastructure we look forward to is right for not just our children, but their children. And it is about the future generations of Fiji. And that is the task at hand for the next couple of days. And that is a task we would like to collectively explore. This week happens to also mark my 1 year in the job. And I can tell you, this has been an interesting ride. And a lot of these 12 months have gone in firefighting. Quite a lot of it in firefighting. And by firefighting, I mean almost persistent daily challenges that pop up and take your day away. So if there is anything that I'm hoping to get out of this personally, that is to create a water sector strategy that moves us away from that daily firefighting to fire prevention. If I can take that fire analogy a little bit further, what I'm hoping from a water sector strategy is to develop a strategy that puts the fire out and keeps it out. That's the vision we like to create. As a hydrology student many years ago, I was taught that water management is about optimizing the time value of water. Optimizing the time value of water. In simple terms, saving it from when the times of plenty and using it in the times of scarcity, which in itself, while a very simple concept, involves a whole lot of capturing, storing, treating, conveying infrastructure. And all that has to be thought through in context of the urban growth that the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister talked about. All that has to be thought through in context of the economic development that we will foresee in the next 25 years. But of all those things, when you think about the crystal ball and look for 2050, the biggest challenge that will hit us is the challenge of what will happen to our climate. We are an island state in the middle of the Pacific, the cold face of climate change. Whether it's the intense rainfall, which is already impacting on infrastructure, which is already causing frequent sewer overflows across the cities, or rising sea levels, which is already causing high risk of dangerous coastal flooding, washing away, putting contaminants into our rivers, or hotter temperatures and lower summer rainfall, which is causing frequent droughts in the east in particular. We are already facing the brunt of it. And Water Sector 2050 is about the 25 years of that future. We must understand that future, and we must include adaptation and mitigation measures of the ideas we come up with, because that future is already here. And it is therefore not an accident, it is by design that the very first theme that we are tackling today is climate resilience. Science is also clear that if we don't radically improve our resource efficiency, it will be impossible to limit the global warming to that 1.5 degrees agreed in Paris. And circular economy, and many of you might think what that is about, and we will explore that collectively together. But circular economy provides us that crucial opportunity to improve resource efficiency. And why it relates to water and why it relates to us, because the urban wastewater is an abundant resource of nutrients and energy that needs to be looked at in different light. Given most of our wastewater treatment plants across the country are now at the end of their design life, and over the next 3 decades we'll be looking at renewing those infrastructure, it gives us a great opportunity to look at a new urban design, to look at a new design of transitioning into circular economy. Just to give you an example, every year we import about 177 tons of phosphorus for agricultural production. And just in Suva alone, Quinoa wastewater treatment plant gets 88 tons of phosphorus every year. You think about the abundant resources available in these treatment plants. In designing and reviewing our infrastructure, there is opportunity of circular economy that we must think about as part of this ideation session. When the government, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, when the government announced the National Economic Summit and included water as one of the key pillars, I must confess that was the happiest and the most positive I've ever felt in terms of the outlook for water in Fiji. Because no serious conversation of economy can be had without talking about water. Every dollar that you invest in water, and economists are in the room, and I know Professor Prasad is here, so I'll be careful what I say, but I understand every dollar invested in water gives you $4.30. And economists can certainly articulate it better, but investment in water supports GDP through better healthcare, reduced pollution, greater workplace productivity, increased school attendance, and a number of other social benefits. So I'm already thinking that the discussion paper we get out of here that we take to the National Economic Summit should have a title, "Have I Got a Deal for You?" Honorable Deputy Prime Minister has certainly put the challenge in terms of improving our operational efficiency, and I certainly take that challenge on, sir. We will certainly work on that. And just for the participants, I also say that in terms of thinking about our solutions, the traditional funding models of infrastructure financing have their limitations, and we certainly need to find more innovative ways of funding our infrastructure. So I encourage you to also, as part of your deliberation, think of what are some other innovative funding ideas to get this infrastructure that we need. Finally, I just welcome you all and encourage you to let the creative juices in your mind flow and freely ideate. Please ask questions, make comments, put suggestions. Just remember, your unique perspective is really important. It is critically important for us to capture, because we want to create an as wholesome water sector strategy as possible. This is the first time we are all under one roof talking about water sector strategy for Fiji. So I encourage you also to take time to get to know each other and have a bit of fun. Vinaka Wakalevu.